It's Elita Empress here. Um, I was just live like a couple hours ago, I think, and I had to regroup myself because um, my SD card had filled up and I had to get my other one. So now we're continuing on with the next part. So if you missed the first part to this one, um, later I'll like add the tags and the links and stuff so you can watch the first part. Okay. Hey there. That is Thugga. What's up? What's up? Okay. So that one's done. Now we're gonna do this one. All right. Okay. Sure, as I had a little bit of frizz in the last filming, which is gonna be the intro and the outro. Yeah, all right, it's fine. Hair's frizzy for the whole season, but it's okay. It is okay. Okay, is that it? Let me see. Okay, got this done. Got this up on my screen. And that's it. Okay. Okay. Better than reparations. Lessons the US of America learned in 2025. All right. So now I'm going to pull this closer so I can read it. My apologies if y'all get blocked, but let me see how I can do this. I think I have to do it like that. Okay. Throughout this platform, you may notice the gap of blogs from 2024 to 2025. That is due to the developments of the entire country and the documentation needed to cover it. From a personal perspective, the author of this essay series is appreciative of the journey. Readers are encouraged to apply information to their own lives and professions to educate and encourage colleagues. Through DEI removals and reductions, funding decreasing actions, information scrambling, and discourse sown amongst the public, the country experienced 2025 in a very unique fashion. Remember that this piece is here to shape the future through policy and healing. Just like James Hadley reached out to President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1939, the author followed her great great uncle's footsteps and reached out to federal authority for understanding of the civilians' experience this year of 2025, specifically through the police system before the National Guard was sent to various cities in the country, including Memphis. The author sent a letter and received a response from President Donald J. Trump about unrighteous actions of law enforcement caused by prejudice. That letter and response are included in this blog, along with the journey documented through the essay series. So, how is this series and documented experience better than reparations? It is evident, especially after 2025, that reparations for formerly enslaved lineages will be a strain to receive as due justice after all this time. Organizations like Black Reparations Project with Civil Rights and Restorative Justice at Northeastern University of Law are working legally to achieve reparations for individuals and families who were affected by prejudice after slavery, and they still face resistance. This organization agglomeration was able to provide something better than reparations for the Hatley family, shared by a descendant, the author of this series and blog. What does this mean for you and your organization? How can your family benefit? By reaching out and exploring the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice platform, you can review and research their work and see how it can be applied to your life. By Hands Now Known, Jim Crow's Legal Executioners by Professor Margaret A. Burnham, co-founder of Burnham Noble's Digital Archive, is just one of the many resources to better understand that gaining an understanding of history is how reparations are truly achieved. By understanding and applying the information discovered, the resources shared can assist every Black American in the entire country, particularly those of slave descent. Why does this matter in 2025? Well, why did DEI have place? Well, why did we have DEI in the first place? Understand that so much information is still hidden from Afro Americans that it is absolutely necessary to express and share for comprehension levels to increase for Black Americans to gain a true sense of self. Throughout this blog, notice the correlations, confirmations, synchronicities within your own life. Notice the symbolism in photos and videos shared. See how the shared resources can benefit you, your business, and your family. Schools and religious organizations can benefit most from these resources for educational purposes. Consider getting a sponsored subscription with your organization to get to Consider getting a sponsored subscription with your organization to get access to unlimited essays and bundles or AI enhanced essays. Speak with your leader or funding team about your monthly contribution and sponsorship. Allow them to review the content here for approval. I'm checking my time real quick. Okay, I'll go ahead and end this clip. Hold on. Move, sir. Get off my foot. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, that is the first part, and then next I'm gonna add some commentary. So like I said, this is a podcast that I'm filming right now, and this is based on my blog. So if you want to read what I just spoke out loud, that is available on marineflowblog.com. So you guys can check that out and read for yourselves and use all the resources that I mentioned and I'm going to continue mentioning here in the stream. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, I had so much happening before I started filming. Okay, let's go. So here we are in 2026. We are currently under the Trump administration during our presidency, and it's currently the first year leading into the second year after his inauguration. And so I have contacted President Donald J. Trump in efforts to allow him to see the perspective of why these policy changes may affect people in a negative way. And in a very literal form, it affects the way that we understand and view history in general. Not to say that anyone should be prioritized over another. And I think that is the deception that comes from these sorts of issues. So when we talk about better the reparations in general, what are reparations? Reparations are very literally the repairing of a people after a period of time of hardship. And so, because Black Americans were never shared the liberty of reparations after slavery, it has continued perpetual cycles of different types of issues. Of course, the at the top, people can attribute um, certain negative characteristics towards Black Americans for that cause, or in that sense, rather, or in that sense. And things like poverty, perpetual poverty, things like certain types of illnesses. So, just taking it back to simple things like health. Black people tend to get neglected in different health fields, and the diet of the Black American was never fully developed within culture. And so, a lot of dietary patterns that happen amongst Black households revolve around what was allowed during slave periods. Black Americans who were enslaved were not allowed to enjoy certain meals and preparations. So, where many cultures are able to develop their own meals based on history and years of preparing these same meals over and over, Black people have evolved from American slavery, therefore only allowing limited dietary choices. Mister, be quiet, man. You're making noise. Be quiet. Get down. Get down. So, because of this, even if financial restitution was placed in the proximity of Black Americans at this point, because the proper transition never officially happened, it wouldn't be the best. And so, I digress. Not to say that it's not deserved or needed. What I'm presenting is what's called better the reparations, based on Black Americans not knowing themselves in totality, not being whole within the single being, within the family, the distortion of family units, not knowing one's own family history. That is what keeps these perpetual cycles in motion and continuing things such as generational curses. We all hear about these terminologies, especially those of us who grew up in the Black American church. So, having culture coming from church or even not necessarily participating in religion, these particular patterns and cycles that we experience as Black Americans must start with getting to know who we are on the inside in totality and who we are with God. Let's continue reading. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. Better than reparations? What could be better than reparations regarding an Afro American family? In 2024, the answers to questions asked for decades finally came to the surface. A mysterious death in the family at the hands of the government and covered by the same entity. There are many stories about Afro American families who lose family members due to racism, especially in the slavery, Jim Crow, and civil rights movements eras. I'll do that one again. There are many stories about Afro American families who lose family members due to racism, especially in the slavery, Jim Crow, and civil rights movement eras. Rarely are these deaths well documented and acknowledged for the purpose of learning a more humane way of life. My great grandfather, Philip Hatley, has the story for generations to learn from. Better the reparations. Solving of a mystery haunting an American bloodline. Do I need to? Okay. It's been a wild ride. The discovery of the lost files hidden about Philip Hatley have truly awakened a different side of everyone involved. The gratitude one must feel for finally understanding the storyline, rather than a vague fact with no details or clarity, must be beyond measure. While most essays written are from a third person perspective, I will be speaking in first person as I am a great granddaughter of Philip and Willie Mae Hatley. My family will also be showcased here in the series as I interview them along with podcaster Professor Laura Faith Cabeda with University of Memphis' Civil Wrongs podcast in partnership with WKNO. Interviewing my family always made sense as I have always had some sort of platform to speak for myself in various forms. My own podcast episodes, my Instagram and YouTube live streams, and my writing work before starting the Flow blog. Better than reparations. Exploring the Descendant Minds of Philip Hatley, Part 1. Grief causes issues. I have experience with this knowledge as my maternal side of the family struggles to this day to agree upon the use of our inheritance. This is not something I'm unfamiliar with. However, it tends to always be something to catch on oh. It tends to always be something to catch an individual off guard when it shows up. Grief is not an issue we discuss much on my paternal side, my lineage from Philip Hatley. Now that this situation is prevalent in our lives, the discovery itself, backing from organizations seeking reparations on our behalf, public recognition on many fronts, it is something that we have to face head on as things progress. I mentioned before in another part of the series that everything has been great with hiccups in the midst. Better the reparations, exploring the descendant minds of Philip Hatley, Part 2. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get that part done. Okay. Time travel. It has always seemed like an impossible ability or event. However, what are you doing right now? Hold on. What you are doing right now is time travel. Whenever we read or watch something from the past, which is always, we are traveling back to the time the original content was created. Physically being in the space may not happen for everyone, but many experience that or similar to it. Have you ever heard of generational trauma? What about curses? Better than reparations. The mind of Willie Mae's progeny. Defund the police. Absolutely not. After 2025, we as the Hatley family would like for law enforcement to work as effectively as possible for the good of the public. Does that mean defunding? No. It means allocating funds to the proper areas of training to decrease and eventually erase what is called implicit bias in legal systems. Implicit bias has been shown to affect the decision making processes of both Caucasian and African American individuals, says Dr. Jillian Watley of Jillian Watley and Associates from Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Watley's impre- Dr. Watley's implicit bias workshop focuses on self awareness, she continues, while also assisting the organization in understanding the possible impact of implicit bias on the historical decision making processes of the organization. We were able to virtually meet Dr. Watley during the formation of the Say Their Names during the formation of the Say Their Names Monuments Juneteenth event held. Hold on, I gotta do that again. We were able to virtually meet Dr. Jillian Watley. Oh my gosh, why am I tripping? We were able to virtually meet Dr. Watley during the formation of the Say Their Names Monuments. Oh my gosh, I keep tripping over this. Say Their Names Monuments Juneteenth. Okay. We were able to virtually meet Dr. Watley during the formation of the Say Their Names Monuments Juneteenth event held on June 21st. Bro, okay. Better the reparations. The results of resurrected history and her story. Oh, okay. Oh, my back. Foxy Boy said, get a stand for your mic. No, I like holding it. Oh, my scarf is moving. I didn't know my scarf was moving. Okay. To conclude this blog, resources are being shared for you and your team to research, apply, and utilize for the future. It is extensive and detailed for the purpose of ease and removal of confusion. Take time to look over any resources that can be applied to your organization or family. You are encouraged to professionally apply these resources as DEI has been placed on the back burner professionally. This will assist in pivoting missions for proper success. To view photos of the Say Their Names Monuments Juneteenth celebration, learn more about the Hatley family from Daryl's lineage, and sign up to the newsletter and email list for updates about the upcoming biography written by Daryl's children and theatrical performance. And to reach this family, check out their family organization website, philiphatley.org. And that's Philip with two L's. PHILLIPHATLEY.org. PHILLIPHATLEY.org. I drink. Yeah, that's gonna be it. So, based on that information, those are simply excerpts from the entire essay series. It is essentially a 61-page dissertation. And so, with that being shared, the entire year of 2025 was documented from the perspective of myself, a Black American woman who came across the most important discovery of her life. It affected my family for really my entire life, for decades. And so, therefore, finally knowing the information gave so much clarity and perspective to everyone in our lineage. Programs and supported institutions that assist Black Americans specifically in that niche area are highly important to American United States history and fundamental function. And so, considering that that is the case, when these situations started happening in 2025, it was rather difficult to watch, simply considering the fact that so many people were suffering at the hands of ignorance. Okay. And so when many groups of people experience collective ignorance, then it causes different uproars that are not necessarily organized or prepared for. And considering that that's the case, it's about thinking about what matters the most in these situations. Does it matter the most to fight, not necessarily flight, but fight for these resources that are being stripped, or pivot in a way that dependency is no longer formed the same way? And so the idea of DEI supporting systems and the way things were upheld, and now that that system no longer exists, it is important to think of ways outside of that thought process, which I do share on the blog. You have to physically read it and see it. Otherwise, here on the podcast, you won't be able to fully understand what I mean. You have to read through the service that is listed directly on the blog. And so, therefore, bring up these topics within your spaces. What happened when DEI was removed? How did Black Americans communicate with each other, in consideration that a lot of professionals were released from predominantly white institutions and were being displaced? Where did those individuals go professionally, academically, and community wise? How did these things affect everyone? And it's very important not to complain about the fact that it happened, because that's where we lose the solution based conversations. Right now, we're focused on solution based conversations because here we are a year later and we're seeing the results of these different decisions that have been made. So, whether we agree or not, it is important to analyze the potential solutions and the absolute solutions that will absolutely work. Okay. I'm going to do one more clip, I think. Vishal said, "How are you? Where are you from?" "I am from India." "Hello. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee in the United States." Zorian says, "Hi." "Hello." Oh, I'm still recording. Let me tell you. Okay. All right. I think this can be the last one. And so, why would it be important to acquire this entire essay series and or take time to read through the blog, read through the resources? And we have various resources as well. Like mentioned, there was a podcast series that was recorded through WKNO at the University of Memphis, specifically the Institute of Public Service Reporting. And so, therefore, we got the chance as a family to speak publicly and collectively about our experiences growing up without the knowledge and now having the discovery of the knowledge in our hands. And we also have footage and we have photo documentation and articles written about the Juneteenth event and celebration that I invited President Donald Trump to. And so the results from these different events, they carry a weight that is not replicatable. And I say that intentionally because all that happened the exact year that the current administration performed the actions that they did. And so that's very highly symbolic, on top of how when we were there at the Juneteenth event, Tyree Nichols' mother was also in attendance. Well, his family was also in attendance. And so when the results from Tyree Nichols' case came in right before our event, that's what makes this so impactful. 2025 was full of historic moments that showed just how corrupt not only these systems are, but the hearts of people. And when people's hearts are corrupt, we cannot utilize the legal system properly because morals are out of the way. If the heart is not aligned properly, then morals are not aligned properly. And so it's perpetual cycles of unjust due service. So people are not facing justice properly. Families are not receiving the proper care from our communities that are deserved. So is it understood that these systems were intentionally placed in a way to deter Black Americans from happiness and success? That actually is accurate. And I go through those particular details within the essay series. And so, highlighting the fact that individuals not only struggle, but also cannot live normal everyday lives. So, liberty and justice, and the pursuit of happiness, and these concepts that we have in the U.S. of America is not fully attainable by Black American people. And there are a lot of successful Black Americans in the United States. So it's not to say that no Black person can achieve any of these things. It's to say that these barriers were put up, and select few are able to pursue their ambitions past these barriers within these particular systems. And we have to look at, okay, we exist in a space that we have to consider what happens if we are outside of the system. So we have things like social media, we have things like independent platforms where we can share our voices and be able to articulate our thought processes for the better and the good of others. People do use things negatively, however, we're going to focus on the important and the positive and the solution based ideals. So when when it's considered to be serving the community, what are the things that need to be the goals for there to be an everlasting solution? Because there are a lot of solutions in place within political systems, communities, and things like, whether we have shelters, we have childcare systems, we have the education system. A lot of these systems fail or are lackluster or do not uphold positive solutions for sustainable periods of time. And that is what is not fully acknowledged by the greater collective of people, not just Black Americans, but since this is the focus, so here we are, DEI is removed. That is a system that is no longer being upheld. What is the solution to that situation? What can permanently take the place of what DEI did for so many people for so many years? These are the questions that we must ask ourselves. These are the questions we must ask our community. These are the questions that we must hold conversations around in our homes. If you're not able to be in your home and have these conversations, you really have to question the morals of your family and your lineage. Because a lot of people love to complain about the current administration that's in office. Sure, every presidency is termed for 4 years. So what's going to happen after these 4 years? Are those things being thought about, or is time being burnt and spent complaining about what's happening currently? What is in your control? Malik, be quiet. You hear me? Yeah. Quiet. What can you perceive? What is in your reality that you are able to do? What are you choosing to consume? Whether that's content, whether that's food, whether that's the clothes you put on, whether that's the type of conversations you entertain. These are the things that we must consider fully and in totality, rather than having surface and base level conversations passing judgment, because that's essentially what it is. I really appreciate you taking the time out to watch this podcast, and for sure, take the time to read the blog. You can leave comments on the blog, and we will respond to your comments on the blog website. And if you leave one there, you will be able to see your comment involved with our podcast. We will interact with you directly so that your comment can be shown on our podcast. All right. I am Tierra Elise Hatley, and this was Marine Flow Blog Podcast. Okay. All right. Kevin said, "Hey girl, what's up?" Vishawn said, "Noise country." Zoria said, "How you doing, miss?" I'm doing really good. Really good. Vishal said, "Good. Do you use Instagram?" Yes, I do use Instagram. Okay, so that was this podcast filming. Oh, oops. So, why would it be important to acquire this entire essay series and or take time to read through the blog, read through the resources? And we have various resources as well. Like mentioned, there was a podcast series that was recorded through WKNO at the University of Memphis, and specifically the Institute of Public Service Reporting. And so, therefore, we got the chance as a family to speak publicly and collectively about our experiences growing up without the knowledge and now having the discovery of the knowledge in our hands. And we also have footage and we have photo documentation and articles written about the Juneteenth event and celebration that I invited President Donald Trump to. And so the results from these different events, okay, they carry a weight that is not replicatable. Better than reparations. Lessons the U.S. of America learned in 2025. Okay, I'm just checking the audio. And that audio is crisp. I tell you, crisp. Absolutely. Okay, y'all. I'm done filming for the day. That, like, I know that a lot of people, like, I'm not gonna say that being a content creator isn't fun. Like, it really is fun. It's just so much that goes into it that you know, it doesn't get seen. And I don't think people fully appreciate a lot of times how much content creators go through, because, I'm not making like fun content. I'm making very educational content, but even fun content, that does take a lot of effort as well. And we go through so much. Like, I have a whole setup here. Y'all saw me turn off and on my studio lights. my tripod for my camera stand, have my microphone plugged in, and then I'm gonna have to go through and edit that, and it's like it does take a lot. Where I am live streaming, and this is easy, just throw the phone up and press record. But when you're talking about creating high quality content that you want to stick to the viewer, stick to the listener, my goodness, the amount of effort and work it takes to fulfill that. Yo, I'm tired. I'm physically exhausted. I need to go eat food, and yo, but I wouldn't change anything. I would not, because this is what I'm meant to do. This is my purpose, and I'm meant to help people and educate people in a way that other people cannot. There's no one who could speak from my unique perspective. There's no one who can share information how and the way that I'm able to share information and the type of information that I'm able to share. Even if I do say things that other people have said, I have such a way of saying it that it'll resonate with people in a way that it will never resonate with anyone else or coming from anyone else. And so, you know, that's just, I'm just taking on this journey filming this podcast series, and oh my goodness, it's really so much. So you guys, of course, you get to listen to the information, but it's like choppy, so it won't be as enjoyable as the podcast. So when I get done, of course, filming, well, not filming, but editing, you guys will have a more enjoyable version of the podcast to watch, pay attention to, subscribe to the channel and all that. And if you guys want to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast channel, it is in the community tab. So if you go to the community tab, you will find where the podcast channel is available. You can subscribe to it. So yeah. All right. If you guys don't have any more comments, I'm gonna go ahead and go. Okay. All right. Shalom, rainicorns. I will see you in the next one. Tawara. And that means thank you in Hebrew.